Hello, welcome to the Unltd podcast recap. I am your co-host, Dr. J. Duncan.
And this is your other co-host, Just Z.
And this week we covered the topic of the keys to rejection.
The power of no.
So, on this week's podcast, we talked about something I believe to be very unique to everyone's life. Being told no. That isn't a thing that, at least I know that anyone I have experienced likes to hear.
They don't like it. We don't like it. We don't want to hear it. Nothing about it. No, we don't want to hear it.
But sometimes people need it, right? Both the person receiving the no and both the person giving the no. So let's recap on some instances where no is needed.
Yeah. Before we do that, though, we'll talk about the first part of the title, which are the keys to rejection.
Oh, yeah.
Because that rejection word is something that can either be perceived or the feeling of rejection can happen sometimes, whether you get a yes or no, whichever one you give power to. And most times people give power to a no. Because we feel like we are worthy, adequate, deserving, and no requires a why, right? No is usually against what we want.
Absolutely.
So that rejection word is something that can shake us.
Mm-hmm. And often rejection is unforgiving. So there, like you mentioned, that why gives hint to the next step. So there's some understanding that comes with it. You see, no becomes rejection in a lot of our lives when we're younger. When you get told, well, no, why? Don't ask why. Mm-hmm. It kind of robs you of the experience of coming to an understanding of why no is a healthy choice versus a yes just being access to. Because sometimes you don't need access to certain things in life because it comes with certain responsibilities you might not be ready for or might not be anticipating, and a no could have saved you from those. Versus a rejection, you're rejected. Do I get any feedback on why? Rejection. And who wants to be rejected? Right?
Yeah, that's very true. So, yeah, some of the keys to rejection we covered. And then getting into the power of that big N word.
No!
Like, even just hearing it out, and I'm just like...
She cringes.
Why are you saying that? And sometimes it's attributed to people who always get their way, or always are spoiled, or don't... who don't like hearing the word no, but sometimes the more you hear it, the easier it is to deal with, because it doesn't hold as much weight. Do you have something to say about that?
No, I do not. See, sometimes no can be an agreement of saying you were correct. I agree with you. So no, I don't have any add-ons. Yes, you were perfect. So, besides that little relationship tidbit I just showed you of how to be a happy life, I would not want to repeat everything from the podcast portion because you should check it out. But in realistic, yes and no should have subjective power, right? Mm-hmm. And that should be.
We'll get into yes later.
Mm-hmm, and that should be. That should be dependent off of where you are, because a no in your life, when you first train in something, you should probably be expecting a lot of no's. You probably shouldn't be perfect out the gate, or else is it really something you should train in, right? But eventually, you will master the art of responding to no.
Yes.
Not just receiving no. I'm used to no.
So responding is one of those keys to rejection, and that's that bounce back. We kind of talked about it, but it's that what weight does the no or the rejection hold if it knocks you down? Is it the weight of a feather and you're like, I didn't feel that? Or is it from someone or something that means a lot to you? Is it because of something that you worked hard for or think you worked hard for? And a no coming from someone who you built something for is different than a no coming from a random person.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's just on the receiving end of a no. That's just on the receiving end of rejection. Sometimes no can feel like empowering almost. No can be associated with a rejoice, right? If you get a negative to something that you didn't want, then that's a rejoicing moment. But we don't always refer back to those moments. If you get a no from an apartment when you really wanted a house, yeah, it might be like, dang, but you're like, well, I didn't really want that for real anyway, right?
So one of the challenges of the principle of no, or the principle of rejection itself, is the ability to deserve something more than no. And I know that's a tricky concept, but sometimes, like you were saying, if you get told a no and you just lay down, you have choice still in either accepting said no as a rejection or taking no as a challenge, right?
Yeah.
And some things in life, there are no's as gatekeepers. It's almost like you need to be able to get over a no or get through. Someone saying, no, you cannot achieve your goal. But if your goal is that ingrained in your heart and you're like, I don't accept no for an answer, you can outwork, outpassion, outlast the no.
Absolutely. Sometimes a no is just put there to turn away those that don't want to persevere through it. So, for the people that hear a no and, they come to the no door, knock and no one answers and they walk away, okay. But for the people that knock twice, for the people that yell, hello, I'm out here, I'm supposed to be on the other side, then comes, opening the door, then comes pushing through or powering through that hurdle. So sometimes, just like, now talking about hurdles, like hurdles are not for people that just stop at no's, because if you miss one hurdle and you give up on the race, then that's not meant for you, right? Unless you're like hurt, right? And that's a whole nother story. But if you hit one hurdle or skim one hurdle, you get back in your rhythm and you keep going. So yeah, that's just the receiving.
Giving has a whole nother context. You see, sometimes we don't give enough no's in our life. Therefore, we attach ourselves to more things than we can chew at one time, and we're not successful because we lack the ability to say no, which gives you the opportunity to focus on something else.
Okay, yeah, that's really true. And sometimes we lack the understanding or the depth or stepping outside of ourselves enough to give a no. It's much easier, surprisingly, when you become a parent, right? Because you are responsible over something or something else to say, no, don't do that, right? But it almost becomes harder because you're so used to being, not just parents, but people that are used to being in the accepting role or being in the, as we talked about before, spare key role. Let you have somebody's spare key and tell them, no, I can't come over, right? You're going to feel like you failed them, or you're going to feel like you don't deserve that or can't do that. And so it's really hard to put that no out there. And maybe it's because you know your potential. I know if I start saying no to one person, everybody's going to get this no. So
Yeah, see, there should be a level of practice so that you can become comfortable when to give that answer. You know, and it's ironic that you said that as far as when you do it for kids or when you're a parent, you usually say no to protect.
Correct.
But we don't protect ourselves, and that is a symptom. Not being able to say no is a symptom of not being able to have proper boundaries around you. So in essence, we forget that we need protecting sometimes, and sometimes only you can love yourself enough to say no. And and you understand that it's not like malicious. It isn't like no because I don't like you. It's I might not be able to do something.
Correct.
And
mentally have the space or emotionally capable right now. But that comes from growing in ships.
I think a challenge for you to think about is balance in itself. Because yes, you don't want to only assume yeses, and we'll get into that later on in another episode. But you also don't want to only assume no's to where you're only living in worst case scenario.
Correct.
You know what I mean? There's a difference between the two, but you need a little bit of, you need to be present in the now so that I can take a no, understand it, and move. Take a yes, understand it, and move. I might like one more than the other, but both of them I can work with.
Know which rejections need you or have you know which rejections make you have to regroup, and know which rejections make you rejoice.
Absolutely. Because you know what? You are stronger when you live through a no than living through a false yes. You know,
imagine getting a yes and finding out the whole thing was a lie.
Absolutely. People, we do that. We do that. We've become a society of yes because we fear the rejection or the reaction to the no. Instead of someone being absolute, and they may be known to say, I disagree, and this is why. Sometimes when you understand why, you're like, oh, you see it this way?
It's not a no, it's just a misunderstanding. It's not a no, it's just a, I need more from you. It's not a no, it's a yes, but I need you to give me something else.
Or it is a total no, and I understand now where you stand. I don't have to pick and choose guess and if it's going to change tomorrow.
I don't have to bring the same thing back to you wrapped differently and hope for a yes and get disappointed when it's not, because I understand the origins from where you come.
And I can respect it and disagree and move on about my business.
Absolutely.
Right? It gets tougher when y'all in the same ship and y'all super close and it's like, oh, we both need to agree. But even then, you don't technically have to agree on everything in order to work through anything.
No.
I mean, real talk. A no is not the end of the journey. And she talked about that a lot in the episode. A no is not the end of the journey. The second that you say it is, there's no more. There's the final no, the big no. The second that you say, I'm tired of the no, you have the opportunity to change that outcome.
Yep. Because there's no such thing, I said it on the podcast, there's no such thing as 100% or 0% in anything. Like, there's no such thing as absolute perfect and the absolute absence of anything, except for if you're talking about the darkness. But, yeah, so people say it all the time, but a million no's and one yes, that yes can outweigh that no. But a million no's doesn't necessarily mean a million rejections. So.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. No more. So if you enjoyed that, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Also, check out the podcast. Of course, the Unltd podcast comes every Monday. And if you are looking for some fly gear, Mind State Apparel is always available for you, as are our Instagrams for you to communicate.
So as always, the smallest change in perspective
can change your life.
Peace.